Hello, my name is Beth Reilly, and I am with the Flamingo Group and eXp Realty. And today I have the privilege to introduce Maureen Failor. Hi, Maureen.
Hey, Beth.
Well, we are longtime friends, but we've also grown to, I ask her questions all the time about Bloomington. And Maureen has had now over 9 years of experience as the president of the Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. And with that, she's had the experience to work with both the Bloomington government and Bloomington residents. Needless to say, she's also a longtime Bloomington resident, so that's also a bonus. Most recently, she was appointed by the mayor to be on the 2020 Budget Advisory Committee. This was in the middle of the pandemic, so he really needed his most treasured and well-educated people to be on that committee. So if you do, we're going to be hitting a lot of information today. So if you could direct message us and we will send you the deck for this. We'll be hitting a lot of statistics, numbers, things like that. So it might be best to do it that way. Also, please send your questions in, and when you do question, we might have a delay in responding just because we might be hitting it later in the webinar. So thank you. I'm so glad you're here to see this. So Maureen, if you don't mind, I think I'll just start getting in on all things Bloomington, and that would be just the basic statistics about our city. Our population is 90%, it's 90,000 people, which is the fourth largest city in Minnesota. Our employment rate is right around 61%. Our housing units right around 40,000 units. And our average income is right around 80,000. The statistics also for families living arrangements is we have 38,725 households. We have about 45% of our population has a bachelor's degree or higher. We have 8,872 people of color. And we have around 3.4% of the population does not have healthcare coverage. Home ownership. This is always a really important statistic as a realtor, of course, is that 66% of the residents in Bloomington own their home. But that is lagging behind compared to 73% of Minnesota as a whole. Now, this is kind of this is a little more detail than you need. I think we'll just talk in round numbers. And again, remember right now we have very low supply. So low supply, high demand, prices are going to be going up. Now, about 40% of the homes in Bloomington, right around average price again, is $250,000. 35% of the homes in Bloomington are right around $400,000. And 7% are over $500,000. The other 15% are homes between $150,000 and $200,000. So these are all homes, anything from a townhome, condo, or just a regular priced home. Maureen, if you could take it from here on some of the other statistics that pertain, of course, more to what you're going to be talking about today.
Great. Well, thank you. And thank you very much, Beth, for asking me to be on this webinar. I always love sharing about our wonderful city. So some other additional stats that I think it's important for folks to know is that the total employment for the city of Bloomington for the residents is approximately 43,000 folks. And keep in mind, with the overall population of 89,000, our city is actually doing fairly well. The number of businesses, I think, is also important to note here. And we have a little over 3,500 establishments here in the city of Bloomington. And one thing that is important to note, people always ask, what's our top industry sector, Maureen, here in the city of Bloomington? And it's hospitality. All things hospitality. We've got the Mall of America, we have the hotels. So Bloomington is home to hospitality. 8,700 of our residents live and work in the city of Bloomington. So that's about approximately 20%.
That's important.
Mm-hmm. So our city is what we would call a council city manager run government. And this represents the city council, and the mayor does sit on city council. So there are a total of 7 council members on the city council for Bloomington.
And we vote them in.
Yes, these are all voted in, and it's important to note that the city council sets the public policy. The city manager runs the day-to-day activities and operations of the city and reports directly to council. Now, some might say the city manager, it all begins and ends with the city manager, but it really is a collective group between city manager, and the council. So the next is our executive leadership team, and Jamie Verbrugge is our city manager. And then you will see the rest of the individuals on the senior leadership team. And I have to say, the city of Bloomington, Beth, is very fortunate to have these individuals.
Yeah, I mean, some of them I took note of right away. It was, of course, the city manager. I also wanted to know Booker Hodges, which would be the head of the police chief. Carla Henderson, community development. These were all, and then Ulysses Seal. I thought all those were key people that affects probably my job as not only a Bloomington resident, but also how do these people affect our lifestyles in Bloomington? So those are great names. I wish I would have met them earlier. I've met a few people, obviously, but I keyed in on those names.
Yeah. And Beth, I think it's important to know, and for those attending the webinar today, the city leadership team, along with the city manager, I know are always available to answer questions or take a phone call from the residents.
Okay, that's good information.
So the next is the organizational chart of the city, and this is where it's a little hard to read unless you take your magnifying glass out. But just a couple of things I want to point out is at the top of the chart, you're going to see boxes shaded in blue. Mm-hmm. And that represents, you'll see the Bloomington, or the people of Bloomington up at the top. Everybody basically reports up to the residents of Bloomington. But the city, besides our city council, the city council depends on various commissions to help them form various policies. So we have the Human Rights Commission, we have the Sustainability Commission, we have the HRA, we have the Port Authority. These particular commissions and entities help the city council make informed decisions. So if you go below, you're going to see boxes shaded in white and kind of in the gold area. Mm-hmm. And that represents the community services, park and recreation, police, fire, public works. So that is what I would call kind of the day-to-day activities of the organizational chart.
And this is also, if you want to see this up close and personal, it's on their website. That's where we got all this information. Right. So that's one you might want to pull out, because you're right. It looks like, I don't know, a very difficult thing to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing it's important for people to understand is the composition of our city council, the members that who they serve, and as far as throughout the city of Bloomington. So the city has 4 council districts. Mm-hmm. And then there are 2 at-large council seats. So Beth, for instance, you and I are over in District 2. Yep. And I believe our council person is Sean Nelson. And so Sean Nelson represents our area. But we also have 2 at-large council members as well that represents the whole city.
Okay.
So if you go off to your right, I think it's also important to note our legislative districts. And we have 3 legislative districts for the city of Bloomington. And you will see those outlined off to your right.
So just for a better understanding, so the city council kind of does all the day-to-day work, then they push it up to legislature, a legislative district. Is that kind of how it rolls?
Well, so what happens is the city itself, and we'll get into it a little bit later in the webinar as it relates to the legislative policies and what the agenda is for the city every year.
Mm-hmm.
But the city council members really collectively talk about and address what city public policy issues they're going to want to tackle. Now, some are specifically in certain districts.
Okay.
Some are, over by the Mall of America, which is over at District 4. So it just varies, Beth, as to whether it's a project or if it's a public policy that affects the city overall. Safe and sick leave is a perfect example of what the City of Bloomington did. The council passed an ordinance specifically for safe and sick leave for businesses in the city.
Safe and sick leave.
Yes.
And that is?
So just real quickly, businesses are now required to offer safe and sick leave to all of its employees, and it gets kind of very technical, and I don't want to spend too much time on the ordinance. It is on the city's website. It goes into effect this July. The state is also discussing, and it will more than likely pass a safe and sick leave as well. So again, it's important to kind of get yourself up to speed, because as all workers work for businesses in the city of Bloomington, everybody's entitled to have some time off if they're not feeling well or if they have a sick child. Okay. And that's kind of the premise, Beth, of why we have a safe and sick leave policy.
Oh, okay. It's just a policy. All right.
Yep.
I thought it was something new.
All right. So let's kind of dive into the numbers, the dollars, if you will. So this represents the 2023 budget and the levy for the city. And it is important to note that the property tax levy is about 68, almost 70% of the city's revenue. And that is significant. But that really isn't different from a lot of other cities in the state of Minnesota. I'm not going to get into too much of the weeds of the property tax levy, but the discussions start in August. Mm-hmm. They set a preliminary tax levy. So let's say they'll set it at 8%. The city council, as in they, cannot go higher than 8%. They can definitely go lower, which is, of course, we would all like to see, but they cannot go higher than 8%. The final levy is set in September. So there's a process that that the city council goes through to get to the end to determine exactly what that levy will be. The next revenue line item is the lodging and admissions tax, which is close to $10 million. And Beth, as you alluded to, I served on the Budget Advisory Committee during the pandemic in 2020, because what happened in 2020? People stopped traveling. People stopped going to hotels. The city was not collecting lodging tax. So you can see the ramifications in the adverse impacts that the pandemic had on this particular line item. So there was a lot of review and tightening up the belt for the city and its departments to try to offset this hit in the budget. If you go down, permits and licenses are 6,800 or 6 million. So you'll see it go all the way down. But I think this chart represents that the majority of the funding comes through the property tax.
And the tax levy will be about 11 million a year. So that would bring our budget up from there about to 74 million around. 5 million.
Oh, no, our overall budget of the city is around $94 million, Beth.
But the tax levy, meaning the property tax levy, if we increase it, it'll go up 11 million. Isn't that what you were saying in the next thing? Or would it just be 90 million? If we add this levy on, that's what I'm asking.
Well, the tax levy, the property tax levy is set, and that will determine what that line item is that we're going to collect in property taxes. And that's through the city assessor's office. We all get a statement from the city assessor's office telling us what the value of our house is, and then it tells us what our property tax. So that's how they can come up with a hard number on this particular line item.
Okay, got it.
So the next, we'll take a quick peek at the expenses. Again, if you look at this particular pie chart, the most important piece of this pie chart is public safety. So you will see police at around $31 million and fire around $9 million, and then community development and public works. And again, this goes back to Beth, really what the responsibilities and the core services that the city really is responsible for. The city must provide public safety. The city must provide adequate roads and streets to get around the city of Bloomington. The city also has to ensure that we are maintaining, and we've got parks for our children to go play at and making sure they're clean. And then also that we're bringing new economic development projects to the city of Bloomington. Now, one thing, Beth, I do want to mention that we probably did not discuss in earlier conversations. The Bloomington Police Department or Fire Department has been a volunteer department, and that is now being transitioned over to a full-time fire department. So our firefighters will be full FTE employees.
And the change for that was there?
It's becoming more challenging for the city to deal with the fire calls, the calls that are coming in for fire. When volunteers have to go over to the firehouse and get to a call on a timely basis, having a full-time staff just ensures that, response time is really met, and that we all know how critical response time is, Beth.
Yep.
And so, having a full-time fire department can ensure more faster response times. And actually down the road, I believe there is a bit of a cost savings, if not a revenue expense neutral on this particular department.
So also when I look at this, and this is something we did talk about, I can't tell, are we running in the red or are we running in the black? Are we fiscally healthy?
The city is very fiscally healthy. One thing that the city is required is they produce a balanced budget. So it's not like a private sector corporation that when you go all the way down the net income, they're hopefully in the black and not the red. The city produces a balanced budget.
Great.
So I think this really says it all as it relates to the city property tax allocation. It's a great visual. I used to just sometimes have heartburn over the dollar bill, but it's become my closest, dearest friend to explain to people. And 50%, 50 cents, if you would look at that, goes to police and fire. Next would be public works, then community development services and park and rec. And then the other goes to service the various debt that the city takes on.
Now, would this change if we make more money or if we make less money? Or are these allocations pretty much set?
These are pretty much set, unless for something changes in the city's budget, new initiatives, if something where public safety, the police maybe need more cops. That's going to change the budget a little bit, but I would say this is fairly accurate, and this is how it's been for as long as I've been around.
Yeah, I love the visual. I think it's
Yep.
a great way to
Yep.
look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the City of Bloomington ventured into a strategic planning process, and we now have a strategic plan that carries us from 2023. Actually, I believe it was passed earlier this year through 2027. And part of that was they retooled the mission statement. And as you can see, the mission is to cultivate an enduring, remarkable community where people want to be. And the city and its staff spent a fair amount of time holding focus groups, meeting with stakeholders, really to get a real pulse and understanding as to what was important to the city residents. What would they like to see? What would they like to see changed in the city? And the strategic plan, which I encourage people to look at, is on the city website. And they're calling the strategic plan Bloomington Tomorrow Together. And you will see the core values that were established. And I'm not going to read off of them, but a couple things to note is that, having a healthy, vibrant community is very important, along as having a safe community as well.
Okay. And I guess when I looked at the core values, they put security and safety as the last bullet point. Are these values distributed or ranked in any way?
No, it's just they're just how they're put up and established, Beth. They're not in rank order.
Okay.
So the legislative priorities for the city, I think, is another important item that our residents should become familiar with, Beth. And the city will set its key legislative initiatives in January. The legislature meets every year. One is a short year, and another is what we call a long session. So right now we are in what we call the long session. But the top priorities for the city of Bloomington is to be able to have a local sales tax option for the residents to vote on in November. And what this sales tax is, it would be a 0.5 added sales tax charge on retail sales in the city of Bloomington. And then, why are they doing this? I mean, why are they passing a sales tax? Well, the city has a lot of aged facilities throughout the city. Bloomington Ice Gardens, Creekside Community Center, and the Public Health Building. And so what they're really looking to do is to see if they can get the sales tax to help offset the cost to repair these particular facilities to get them up to the level they need to be. Now, keep in mind that this sales tax would generate roughly around $11 million each year over 20 years. It is also stated that the majority of the people who will pay this sales tax are from outstate visitors coming to the city of Bloomington. But the the residents of Bloomington are going to have to pay this. Right. Yes, we have outstate residents coming in, but yes, we as residents will be paying the local sales tax option.
Okay, and my apologies. That's where I got the 11 million.
Yep.
That's when we were talking earlier, but it will be going, and I think it's good that you brought that up, that it will be people that are coming into our hospitality areas like Mall of America. They're paying that retail sales tax, and that would be nice to not just have us carry that burden as
Correct.
Residents.
Correct. But it's important to note that any sales tax that is passed is a regressive sales tax. And the concern that should be noted is we have parts, residents of Bloomington, senior citizens that live paycheck to paycheck.
Absolutely.
And having to pay a little bit more for a loaf of bread, that is something that our city council kind of needs to keep in mind as they look at these types of public policies and funding.
Well, right, because we are behind. I mean, 73% of the state of the people in Minnesota are homeowners, but in the city of Bloomington, only 66% are. So we are starting to you're right. It does drastically affect people's ability to own in Bloomington.
Correct. So the other items that I think it's important to note that the city is also supporting is the reconstruction on 494. And this is really to increase the mobility and improve the safety on 494. I don't know about you, Beth, but there are times when I'm like holding on for dear life with my steering wheel. But what this would involve is it's a reconstruction of almost 10 miles along 494 from Highway 69 over to the airport. And then the other is for improvements for public safety technology. So those are kind of the core legislative priorities for the city of Bloomington for this current legislative session.
And
Now, Beth, keep in mind, everybody's been hearing a surplus. We have a $19 billion surplus. There's lots of people out looking for money to fund projects. And the city is one of many that is also looking to get some additional funding.
The I-94 reconstruction also, though, I mean, a lot of people drive through Bloomington, like Old Shakopee Road, instead of getting on 494, because it is exactly what you said. It's kind of treacherous.
Yes. So finally, I just want a quick touch base on what potentially could be happening exciting in our city in 2027, and that is the World's Expo. And the city of Bloomington, along with the state and the feds, got together and decided to go and submit another bid to hopefully host the World's Expo in 2027. So with that being said, I first want to state that this is not just a City of Bloomington project. This is what I call it takes a village to put on this kind of event. You have Washington, D.C., you have the state of Minnesota, you have Minneapolis, St. Paul, and you have the city of Bloomington. And then you have the private sector that has come together, and there is a local host committee that comprises of all those individuals to help go get the World's Expo. So this is the theme that the host committee has been presenting and pitching over the course, I believe, over this last year, but it's healthy people, healthy planet, wellness, and well-being for all. Now, keep in mind what that mission statement is for the city of Bloomington. There's a lot of connect the dots for that. But again, this is potentially a very ambitious, huge, major undertaking for our state and for our city. So just a couple of statistics for our folks to see is that this actually is a $1.5 billion event. To put on the World's Expo, it is estimated to come in at $1.5 billion. It is also expected to generate 13 million visitors. 90% of that are from out of town. Now, this is a jobs event that can create a lot of jobs. And throughout the U.S., it's 33,000 jobs. And in Minnesota, 17,000. They're also looking, and it's anticipated, $700 million in spending when this event is taking place. And I believe this event takes place, and if I say the wrong number, but I believe it's about almost 3 months. $700 million in spending. And then actually the last time the U.S. held the World's Expo was in 1984. So again, this is a very heavy lift project. And again, it'll be very exciting if we get it. So who funds the World's Expo in Minnesota? Well, it's a combination of private sector dollars. Corporations will come in and help support this event. We have from the federal government where they will allocate dollars for this event. The state of Minnesota will also provide state dollars as well. And then you get it through various fees and things that will be part of the World's Expo. So it's different pots of money coming together to help pay for this event.
So help me out with this. I mean, this is the hot topic. Let's face it. Everybody wants, I really am glad you're able to educate everybody on how city government works, but this is a very hot topic for Bloomington. And one of the things is right away, it's 1.5 billion. Great. I'm glad that we're going to spend 1.5 billion. And you said it's coming from all these different pots. That's great. 700 million in spending. Does that mean everybody that comes into Bloomington is going to spend about 700 million? Is that what we think we're going to get out of it?
Yeah, there's a formula, Beth, that the host committee uses, and there is a formula that they used when they went to get the Super Bowl, the U.S. Open, all those major big events, and that it's a calculation number. So this is what they're anticipating the expenditures will be in net, but Beth, it's important to understand, not only in the city of Bloomington will $700 million be spent. It will be spread throughout the metropolitan area. People will be housed in Bloomington, but they'll be staying in downtown Minneapolis and downtown St. Paul, over in Eagan, in other parts of the metropolitan area. So the spending is kind of spread out, which actually is good for our local economies. Everybody gets a piece of the action.
So $1.5 billion event, meaning we're going to spend I'm going to use the term country, 1.5 billion for the event, and we're going to get back approximately 700 million.
Well, that's in spending, Beth. Yes, that's kind of the golden goose that we're looking at. And when you look at what else can bring in $700 million in spending in our local economy, we're kind of hard pressed to come up with a project or something that can make up that number. But still, it's important to note that these are all estimates. These are not numbers that are written in stone and are concrete numbers. These are just estimates based on forecasting and taking a look at what has happened in other parts, that countries that have held the World's Fair.
Okay. One of the other things is we're looking at $33,000 jobs in the U.S., 17,000 jobs in Minnesota. How long do you think? I mean, there's no duration. Are these jobs that are going to stick for a long time, or are they just, that's it?
No. So the good news is we'll find out in June if we will be named the host city for the Expo 2027. So we'll know fairly soon, which I'm sure a lot of people are anxious to hear that decision being made. So this is not forever. Jobs will start right away and will take us through the end of 2027. So these jobs don't last forever, Beth. And there is a question of sustainability.
Yeah.
What does this World's Expo do for the city and sustainability? Pavilions will have to be built. This is going to be over at the South Loop District over by the Mall of America, where there is, a lot of undeveloped land. And so sustainability wise, what are we going to use all these buildings for? And I know the host committee is very in tune to making sure that sustainability for those buildings can, but there's a little risk here. There is a little risk, but it will not fall on the taxpayers' shoulders.
Okay, that's good. I like hearing that.
Yeah.
Who are we? No, we're competing with, I think it's Argentina, Spain, Thailand, and Serbia. So it'd be San Carlos, Argentina, Malaga, Phuket, and Belgrade. Do they have better facilities than we do? I know you're not on the committee.
I'm unfortunately not on the committee. All I know is that we have put our best foot forward in our bid. The host committee feels very positive and confident that we will be selected to compete against Argentina and Spain. Well, yet to, remain to be seen on that. Spain is beautiful. So is Argentina. So we'll just have to see what unfolds come. And I believe the date is June 21st.
Okay. So I guess we just have to wait.
I guess we do.
Get crazy about this now. I think we got to learn a little bit about Bloomington and our government. I mean, I'm super excited about that. What other areas do you think that people that are watching could get involved? That's always
right.
It's always tough to determine. Where do they start? How should they do it?
Yep. So I think it's already important. It's important for people not to sit on the sidelines and have that Monday morning water cool quarterbacking session as to why did the city do this. Mm-hmm. Everybody has an opportunity to get involved. So the city always has various focus groups taking place. The city is very inclusive and wanting to make sure they're hearing from all the residents and stakeholders. Apply for a commission. Now, as I mentioned earlier, some of these commissions you do have to apply for, and the city council does appoint these members to the commission. But apply for one of the commissions. It's a great way to start learning about your local city government. One of my favorites is the Organic of Neighborhood Watch Groups. And we know on August 2nd, National Night Out, Bloomington is one of the highest cities for turnout for National Night Out. So get to know who your watch captains are in your neighborhood and get involved. It's a great way to get involved. Plus, you get to know who your local law enforcement officers are. The school district, get involved. If you have kids in your schools, get involved with the local PTAs, get involved with your kids. Another way to really learn about our school systems and to engage in our city. And then finally, consider running for office, city council or the school district. And just FYI, we do have an upcoming election, Beth. And this is a very unique election because all council members, including the mayor, will be up for election. So if people are interested, don't be shy. This is something that I think everybody should be getting involved with one way or another, is in public service.
I agree. I think that's definitely the direction it's going. I think we've just only started on this. We'll probably be meeting with you again. I want to learn after we get the World Expo. It'd be nice to know what's ahead. And we truly appreciate your expertise in this. I learn a lot every time we talk. It was nice to have visuals too, because my brain only works in so many levels. And I look forward to talking to you again about this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was truly a privilege.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maureen.
Yeah. Thanks, Beth, for having me. And just for everybody out there, a lot of the information that you saw on the deck today was pulled from the city website, from the Department of Economic and Employment. And the city also provided us with some of the information. So again, go to the city's website, wealth of resource and information for all of you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And if you are thinking of moving or want more information about real estate, please give me a call at 952-210-8931. I'd be glad to give you more information. And of course, if you're looking for real estate or selling, we're the guys. So think of follow the Flamingos, and thank you for your time. And I look forward to seeing you out in the city.
Thank you, everyone.